Hi, welcome to Marlene at Home, and I'm Marlene, the Adult Services Supervisor of the North Carroll branch. One of my co-workers suggested for an episode that I talk about family fashions of the past. I thought of one closet that I could hit first, but it reminded me of that commercial. You know the commercial, what's in your wallet, and it has to do with a credit card? My question to you is, what's in your closet? I have lots of closets, I have lots of things I need to get rid of, but here's some things in my guest room, mostly things from my mom's house or things that my girls have left here. There are several hat boxes. This is a hat box of my mom's. I can remember in the 50s going down the street after my mother has been to the hat store, and we would carry these boxes, and I would be quite proud that we had packages and hat boxes. This was from the La Charme store nearby where we lived, and now there's several hats in here, and the boxes are showing their age. These would have been from the 50s, and there's an assortment of hats in here. I can remember my mom wearing this one, and now there's some netting that's deteriorating. I believe, not totally 100% on this, I believe this is the hat that my mom wore to my dad's funeral in 1956. I was 5 and my sister was 22 months, but I believe that that's the hat that she wore that day at the funeral. One of the most memorable hats in here is a Stetson hat. In all the years that my mom was widowed, let's see, my dad passed away when I was 5. My mom remarried just a few days before my 16th birthday. But in all of those years, I can only remember my mother going on one date. We were all very shocked. We were all very worried. And it was a business associate of a friend of our family's. It was a man from Texas, and he pulled up in this big Cadillac, and my mother was all dressed up, and we're like, well, where are you going? When are you coming back? My aunt was watching us, and we were all very nervous. And it was so out of character for my mom. When she came back, we knew we didn't have to worry anymore that was never going to be happening again. But she said this kind gentleman took her to the Stetson factory, and he said, pick out a hat. And she said she looked at all the prices, and they were outrageously expensive, and she said, I will never spend that kind of money. But he got so provoked with her, he said, woman, just pick out a hat and we can go. My mother picked out this hat. As you can tell, of all the hats in here, it's hardly worn. But in all my years in church work, mother-daughter banquets, plays, things with my kids, we have worn it for times like this, for times like that. But this is my mother's famous Stetson hat from Henry. Some other hats in here I don't know the background of, although I've seen pictures of my mom wearing this more like in the 40s, late 40s, not so much when I was a child, but in pictures. Here's another one of these little net hats that, you would wear, and the netting would just kind of, oops, I got it caught here, would just hang over your eyes in the front. She wore this in the 50s. I can remember this one. Another very similar one, and this might have been more in the 60s. I can remember her wearing this. I guess black was her favorite color. Has some little birds with little, I don't want to say diamonds, little sparklies for their eyes. But anyway, I remember that. That was more like in the 60s. This was my great aunt's hat, and I remember my Aunt Amy was her name. First and last was the same, and she then gave it to my mom. And so I can remember my Aunt Amy wearing this more, my Uncle Claude's wife, more than my mom, but my mom did wear it occasionally, and I do remember that. So that is one hat box that I inherited from my mom's attic, that, when my sister and I were divvying up things, who's going to take what, and things we don't really need, but what do we do with them? I remember this store. This was, store was from Rogers, same town as this store, and how they used to box up the hats, and you'd have these little strings and carry them down the street after you purchased them. Rogers was someplace we went when we needed a really good dress, maybe as children a Christmas dress or an Easter dress, or my mom a special hat. Poor Rogers' box is falling apart. And I had to chuckle when I got in here, because not only is it this feathery hat of all different colors, but here's also the bill. It's from 1959. Says it's a black feather hat. It was regularly $10, on sale for $6.98. and she bought it on, I think that's a 2, February 9th of 1959. So this one doesn't look very, it's got the hat pin in the top. Doesn't look like it was worn a whole lot. But anyway, that's all in the Rogers hat box. And if you grew up in the area that I grew up in, I'm sure many of you remember that Rogers store. And so it's just fun for me even to look at the boxes and the way things used to come and be packed and treasured and kept over the years. I'm now going to pick out some items from the closet. I had no idea how many were packed in there. It's a large closet. You can pack both ends, and still the whole middle of the closet looks like there's not much in there. So let me grab some of those dresses. The earliest one I have is from the 40s. This was my mother's wedding gown. I didn't even realize I had it. My oldest daughter, when we cleaned out Mom's house, asked for it. I didn't realize that I was where it was being stored. So I was quite surprised to open these many plastic bags here this afternoon and find this. Now the blue in this gown is just blue paper to keep the arms nice. Some of the lace here in the front has begun to deteriorate. There was a big hoop. There is a big hoop in the bottom, but it's a little bent. There was a good size train in the back. I can't get it all unraveled at the moment, and the fabric is so old. But anyway, and then I think she told me they called this a sweetheart veil, where you wore this up on your head like a heart, and then there was part of the veil came to the front. I don't know if I can get it all right. I know that my kids, my daughters, and my nieces and nephews, my nieces, I don't have any nephews, my mom let the girls, the grandchildren, the 4 granddaughters, try her gown on, and we have pictures of that. But here's my mom's wedding gown from the 40s. This is also a dress of my mom's. This is from the 1950s. She was in her best friend from high school's wedding. Her best friend did not marry. She's not my real aunt, but we used to call her Aunt Jo. And anyway, she married later in life to someone that had been married before with 5 children. And my mother was the only part of the wedding party. It was mint green. The headpiece has kept the exact color. The dress has faded. It's not the mint green, but this was from the 1950s. This is another dress of my mom's, another wedding dress. My mother remarried just before I turned 16. So let's see, I think this was 1966. And she just had a street length dress, a wedding in the home of a pastor. It underneath was sleeveless and had this satin, pale pink satin at the top. And then it had this jacket and some pretty pink bows over the back. So this was the wedding dress that my mom wore when she was married the second time. This gown was mine from a Christmas wedding in 1969. 2 of my high school friends got married, and I was one of the bridesmaids. It was a Christmas wedding that I told you how much I love Christmas weddings, and this was a gorgeous one. Here's my headpiece that I wore, and this still looks almost identical to the day I wore it in 1969, so pretty amazing. These 3 items were from my wedding. This was the dress my mother wore at Paul and I's wedding in 1973. This was Paul and I's going away outfits on our honeymoon. We had a Christmas wedding. I had a white turtleneck sweater underneath of this. Kind of could go with today's. And this was Paul's jacket. These were our December 29th outfits when we left home. A few years later, a few years after I was married, my sister got married in 1976. I was the matron of honor in her wedding, and this was my dress. The other bridesmaids, their dresses were peach with this outfit. My gown was green, mint green. She had an Easter wedding because she said she would never get married in the summer. She thought it was crazy for brides to get married in the summer and be hot and sweaty and all dressed up. So she got married April 17th. That day, it was over 100 degrees. The church was not fit for the air conditioning to turn on that early. We roasted. The cake melted and slid over. The flowers wilted. It was quite the memorable day for the girl who's never going to get married in hot weather. In the 80s, I'm guessing maybe 1984 Christmas, this was our youngest daughter's Christmas dress, Megan. In the late 90s, this was my oldest daughter who graduated, I believe in 1999. This was a dress she wore to some special events, her senior year of high school. And her graduation picture, she's wearing this in some of the photo shoots. And so anyway, our first one was getting ready to leave home. Once my girls get to high school age, then gowns became multiplied. I have so many in the closet, I'm only showing you a few. But I can't complain. I think growing up, I was in 7 weddings as a teenager and young adult. So I have no room to complain. I don't even know where those dresses are, but I know I have some somewhere. I showed you one. But anyway, I will just show you a quick assortment of some of our girls' gowns, special spring formal kind of things, weddings, and I'll show you those now. Many years later, I can't even remember which girl wore which gown for what event, but this is one of the gowns. This one's black and white with then a white shawl that went over their shoulders. These dresses for my girls are from the 2000s. This was always one of my favorite ones. This was our youngest daughter. She wore this one in high school, and this one had a black wrap around it. There were other kind of outfits that started to play an important role in our family. This is a tailored suit jacket for my oldest daughter when she went for her med school interview. I remember being shocked at all the rules. It said black and navy only, no colors. I just thought, oh my. But women breaking into the medical field really need to look prim and proper back then. We even worried, was the bright pin, was that be too much? But we went with it and she was accepted. Another pretty high school gown of our youngest daughters with some sparkle, some frills on the back. This was always a fun dress too. This was also the era when other gowns started entering into our family life. I believe, I'm not 100% certain, I think this was graduation from med school. Those of you that know about the hoods, you could tell me. But I have several different robes. I have one for my master's, one for my youngest daughter's master's. There's this one, there's some other ones. Graduations were continual and constant in our family. After college, then it was friends' weddings that the girls were in, or special occasions, and so these are some of the gowns from them. I always loved this pearls on the blue silk. Thought that was really pretty. They were on the back as well. The pink one is another, I believe, somebody's wedding. Has some pretty flowers on the back. This gown, I have 2 of the exact same gown. And that's because both of my girls were in their cousin's wedding. I'm one of 2 girls. My sister had 2 girls. I had 2 girls. And all 4 of the girls were very close and in each other's weddings. So I think we all have 4 gowns from the 4 different weddings. And this was for my oldest niece, her wedding. It was a December wedding, but surprising, not red and green. But it was blue and silver and snowflakes. I guess in Alabama, she just wanted to do anything she could to make it look like snow and ice. And we didn't have snow or ice, but she did have a major tornado in her town the night or the day before the wedding, which caused a lot of havoc, but we were able to get everything to go through the next day. Okay, so I've shown you what happens when you're the mother of 2 girls. And you grew up in a family of girls, and you yourself were in a lot of weddings and special events. And I've shown you that they've all, not all, but seemingly all, have ended up here at my house. My question to you again is, and what's in your closet? Thanks for joining Marlene at Home again this week.